everybody. So today's office hours is going to be going over how to use the Edit All feature to create custom vendor reports. So for the agenda for today, we're going to be going over the available AP reports that we currently do have in TOPS 1, how to use the Edit All feature, and then how to get the data into a CSV file. I'll also show you a couple tips and tricks on how to, on some things that you can do with the Excel file after you've exported. So we have a good amount of AP reports available here. We have the age payables report, and that pretty much lets you know about any past due invoices and the date that they were supposed to be paid. We have the AP distribution to GL, so any entries made in the GL coming from AP will show up. So the invoice expense and the clearing counts will be able to be seen on that page. We also have the open items, pretty self-explanatory, all the open items for your community and the vendor that it is associated with. And then we got a couple more, the check register, vendor history, and the vendor report. So the vendor report that we have shows like a little bit of information like the vendor name, let's pull it up real quick actually. So you can see why you would want to use the Edit All report. Okay, so if you go into Reports, Standard, it's going to take you to the Standard Reports page. Towards the middle, you'll see a section called Accounts Payable. And these are all the reports that we currently have. And let's take a look at the vendor report real quick. So for most of the AP reports, if you hover your mouse over the top left of the screen where it says the community name, you'll see an option that says all communities. And if you click that, you can pull some reports, but for the entire portfolio versus just a community. So over here, you'll see that you can see their name, mailing address, billing address, and contact information, and whether or not they have the 1099 flag on. So it's pretty limited to what information is available on this report by default. You can also include the insurance information. But the good thing about the Edit All feature and the ability to export report from there is that almost any information that you have available on the vendor profile, you can get that out. So if it's not available here, you don't have to stress about it. We can get that information for you. So like I mentioned before, the Edit All feature has a lot of cool benefits to it. You can see all of the vendor information in one shot without having to browse through the different vendor pages. If needed, you can add and edit vendor information in bulk without having to go to every single vendor page. And once you finish all of that, you can export your data into a CSV file that you can manipulate, and you can print to a PDF. You can do whatever you guys want. So how do you get to the vendor edit page? It's pretty simple. You can do it in a few clicks. So if you want to verify that you're in the correct community. Like I said, in pretty much almost any pages, you'll see the community name at the top left. If for whatever reason you want to switch it to see the entire community list, you can click the arrow pointing down and then click all communities. So once you're on the correct community, you're going to click AP or accounts payable and then vendors. What's that going to do is going to take you to the vendor index page. And once you're on that page, you'll see a little pencil icon to the top right under the action button. And that button will take you to the Edit All page. I'll show you what that looks like. So from here, you click Accounts Payable, Vendors, and the Edit All button is on the top right-hand corner. And this is what I was talking about, switching your communities. If you hover your mouse over the community name, you can click all communities, and then it'll show you all of the communities, all the vendors within your portfolio. So you can click Edit All. And this is the page where you can edit, view, and export your vendor information. So it's you can get to view the vendor information can be done in a few steps. Let me show it to you in the live. So once you have this page opened up, the first thing that you're going to want to do is select the information that you want to be able to see down here in the display area. So how you do that is first, you're going to click the little filter icon on the top right-hand part. And what this does, it shows the available columns, aka the available data that can be shown, and the filters. So first thing that you're going to want to do on the left-hand side, select the columns that you want to see. So anything with a check mark means that it's selected. Anything with a dash through it means that it can be selected, but it's just not. So if you want to remove any of these columns, it's just simple as clicking it. If you see I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen, how there is the general info, and it has like all of these little sections to the right, or all of the little sections at the bottom indented. So pretty much if you click general info, by default, it'll select all of that information because that's general information for the vendor. But if you don't need the status, if you don't need the tax ID or whether they receive 1099, you can select it. Same thing goes for this. If you click billing address, it's going to select all of the things under it. Hopefully that makes sense. So once you finish selecting the columns, aka the data that you want to be able to see, if you want to, you can filter the vendor list at the bottom by those columns. So let's say if I only want to see the vendors that are in Florida, I can do that. If I want ones that are only in Tampa, let's pick Tampa. I can do that as well. So you don't have to use the filter option, but it's there if you want to filter the list at the bottom. So once you have all of your columns selected, and if you want to use your filters and you have that set, you could click the search button. And then at the bottom, that's going to show the list of vendors that meet the criteria of here. Or if you want to see all of the vendors, you can do that too. So now that I have my list of vendors and my information, what can I do now? So the next thing that you can do let me backtrack. So let's say if you have all the vendor information on here and you realize that there's some information that may be a little bit outdated or you need to update, you can do that too. So that's the next slide. Adding and updating vendor information. You simply just click the edit button on the page and you can just click the individual field or the cells and it'll allow you to edit it. So let's see what that looks like in TOPS 1. So whenever you're ready to edit or add any of the information, you can click this edit button all the way in the top right, and it's going to allow for these fields for you to be able to click into it and edit it. When I'm editing the vendors, I click the filter icon again just to minimize those parameters. I don't know about you. I like just seeing what I need to see and nothing more. So you don't have to do it. You can if you want to. But for my example, I'm going to click it so I can just see the display. So you go into one of the cells, type what you need to do. If you want to move across one line for a specific vendor, you can click the tab button on your keyboard and it'll easily move you across. So very important, when you're on the screen, just click into the cell one time. If you double click it, it'll return you to the quote unquote view design. So you can see it, but if you want to go ahead and edit something else again, you'll have to click edit. So make sure once you're in the edit section, you just click one time, make your changes, and then you'll be good to go. So once you made all your changes, everything is good, you can save it by clicking save at the top right-hand corner. Boom. Now you have your vendor report the way you want. You made sure that all the information is correct, and now we want to export it. So if you click the export button all the way in the top right-hand corner, it's going to give you a CSV file down at the bottom. So this file looks like this. And if you'll see, I'm going to go over a couple Excel tricks in a little bit, so don't worry about it. If you look, all of my columns that I have here are the ones that I have on my TOPS 1 page. So here I can verify that all the information is the same, and now I have it in a CSV format, which is a lot better than the vendor report that pretty much just gives me like this information. If I wanted to include the vendor insurance, vendor expiration, their contact name, their contact email, I can include that all in one single report without, having to uh, do too much work. Just select the parameters and you can get this report from here. So the next thing that I want to touch on, that now that I have this export, how do I make it readable? So as you saw by default, where is it? There you go. When I got the file, the columns were compressed. So if you look over here in column A, there's some words that are cut off, and there's a couple quick tricks on how you can, let's see, on how you can expand the columns. It looks like we got a couple questions. Let's see. If the vendor has multiple email addresses, will they all show up in the report? Let's say if the vendor profile has an email and then the vendor contact has an email, you can have both of those show up. So let me show you real quick. So if I go to my columns, you'll see vendor, vendor email, and then I also have primary contact and then primary contact email. So let's say if uh, Vermilion Electric, they have a generic email address, but then Serge, he has his own personal one. You can include both emails, and both of those emails will show up on your report. So primary contact name, primary contact email, and then here is the emails. So hopefully that answered your question. So let's go back to the Excel page. So all of my columns are all bunched up, and it's kind of hard to read. So what I'm going to do is expand the columns for all of my rows here. So what you can do is, and like I mentioned before, this will be in the Excel PowerPoint, so don't worry about it. You click on the top left-hand corner. So if you look next to the column A and above row 1, you'll see this little tiny triangle. If you click that, that'll select your entire sheet. And now the next thing that we're going to do is click Format, which is on the top right-hand corner in the cell section, and then Auto Fit Column Width. So what that does is, evens out all the rows, and then you can read all the information. In Excel, there's like 100 ways to do the same thing. So let's say if you select the entire document, you can also double click the line in between the columns. So if you look at column A and column B, there's a little line there. If you double click that, that does the same thing too. This just makes the report a little bit easier to read. Let's see. The next trick that I've saw that would be a little bit helpful is that when you want to print the report, by default, it goes to portrait versus landscape. So if you have a report that's on portrait, you can only fit so many columns before it cuts off on the page. I saw that if you put it into landscape, you get a lot more room for more columns. So let's see what that looks like. If this opens up. Okay. So if you click on the ribbon all the way at the top, there's a tab that says page layout. Right under page layout, you click orientation, and by default, it goes to portrait. Put it in landscape. So here, if you look in between column F and column G, you'll see a dotted line. And if you look in between row 34 and 35, there's a dotted line over here too. That indicates the pages. So from here and here will be one page. And if you just look at the dotted lines, you'll be able to see pretty much where the page splits up. So right now that we have it on landscape, it lets us see up to column F on one page. But if I put it on portrait how it was before, you'll see that the dotted line moved in between columns C and D. So you have significantly less space for the data that you have here. So switch it to landscape and you have more room that you could fit on one page. So the next thing is, now that I have this report, I want to put it in a PDF, or if I want to email it out. Emailing something in Excel, leaves room for things to be able to be changed, and it looks a little bit nicer on a PDF. So one thing that I like to do is add, a little header for it. So if you select the first row, right click, insert, you add a blank row. So here you can put vendor report for 1/30/2020. You could pretty much edit it as pretty much however you want. So if you want to get fancy with it, you want to add more information, you can do that too. So that's a really awesome thing about the information being exported to Excel, is that you have the ability to manipulate the file and make it look however you want. So once you have everything looking the way that you want, you click File, Export, and you just click this Create PDF to XPS. And then once you click that, it'll ask you, do you want to change the file name? Where do you want to save the file? And once you have everything good, you just click Publish. And your PDF will now be saved in wherever the location that you saved your file. I really like Excel. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. There's a lot of, formulas that you can add, make your Excel look awesome, and even update them pretty frequently and send them out to your board members on all that stuff. Let's see. I think that covers it. We also have a knowledge article on how to do the edit all feature. If you click the little support widget, edit all vendors, that first article will be able to show you how to do all this. And the same thing that I mentioned in the PowerPoint is available. It's awesome that we have the ability to be able to pull almost every information that we have on the vendors to an Excel file. All right, everybody, that pretty much wraps up the webinar for today. I really appreciate you joining us, and feel free to have a good day. Thank you very much.